yes and going too far. Yes and is supposed to work for in-game events, not changing character backstories. And other players definitely shouldn't be changing your character. They have agency over themselves, and you have agency of your character. That's how it's supposed to work. The best you probably can do is just lay out your side of the story. You thought the new player being the spouse would be a bad idea, and they're rewriting parts of your character in a way you don't like. You're not the one doing anything wrong there, just reacting to a situation you're not enjoying as part of the game. It's not anything personal against the player, you just want control of your own character. If the group don't accept that, be firm about your character and his background. Don't let it be changed. Make them accept your yes and. In your shoes, I wouldn't have allowed the game to proceed until she agreed to play a different character. Yes and is a great principle to adhere to within the context of a session, but when somebody new joins the table, you have a session 0, and session 0 is not where yes and applies. Be clear and direct out of character. Say the NPC of my character's spouse is fundamentally linked to my character. I am not comfortable with another player having creative control over this character, as it necessarily changes my character in ways that I am not okay with. I never agreed to having my character's spouse as a playable option for future players. If they're reasonable, which I hope they would be after 2+ years of being in the same campaign together, they'll understand this. You're in the right here, but you'll do yourself a major disservice by attempting to resolve this in character. Divorcing the newbie isn't correct, establishing firm boundaries as a player is. Yes, and aside, no player should get to make decisions about a character who serves as a major part of another PC's backstory. That's the DM's NPC, but it's also your NPC. I'm disappointed that your DM allowed a person you don't know to play, let alone retcon, your in-game spouse. Nobody at your table should be upset that you resent having your NPC co-opted in this way. I hesitate to say what you should do, but I will confidently state that, based on what you've told us here, you are not in the wrong. Yeah, if people want to interweave background stories, it needs to be mutually agreed. Yes, and is reasonable to an extent, you need to balance it with no, but. As to what you should do, tell them that this effectively rewrote your backstory without your consent, and you don't enjoy the game because of it. Apologize that you made them cry, and explain why you reacted the way you did. Even if you don't feel like you're in the wrong. If they're so committed to yes, and then they need to roll with the fact that your character wants a divorce. If that's a problem, start crying, since your feelings only seem to matter if you use raw bursts of emotion instead of words. They took a stand that I have to roll with the relationship, so in their eyes the divorce goes against yes and. That's not yes and. You had a relationship, she said yes and I cheated, you said yes and my character was very hurt by that and wants a divorce, she said no. Yes and should never force someone to do something they would not. As in should never force op to be married to a player instead of NPC. If they insist in this shit, then yes and requires them to accept that the open marriage means op is married to all the other characters, that they have all agreed that as the Lord and Master, op gets all loot and exp, and that all the gods get their power from op. People need to understand what yes and is for. It's for building a scene together. In this case, op had a backstory. They had an NPC wife. A new player is brought in, occupies that role, over op's objections, and then proceeds to rewrite their backstory. That is not building a scene together, it is changing what has already happened. The fact that the rest of the table reacted the way they did makes me extremely suspicious of them. I wonder how they would feel if the same thing happened to them. Yes, and is great for improv comedy, where a sketch might last for 5 minutes and then it's over. Yes, and is even good for TTRPGs when used as more of a guiding principle than a hard and fast rule. There are lots of ways to use it poorly. This post describes one. Tell them you are not comfortable role-playing a marriage with other players at the table. Cite your wanting a divorce and her crying as a reason why you are uncomfortable with the dynamic. Do not tell them you want a divorce, tell them the divorce is done and you will not change your mind. It's not a question, you aren't going to role-play it, it's over. If she is not comfortable playing your divorced wife, then she needs to make a new character. She does not get to decide that her character is your character's wife if you are not consenting to that role play. This is so ridiculous that it's very hard to believe it's real. Seriously, what's with giving the new player control over another player's wife NPC? It's the most ridiculous move I've seen at a table. The only reasonable thing I can think of that makes these events make sense is that the player has a thing for op, and everyone else at the table but him knows it. It's still shitty, but it's literally the only reason I can think of. That 1, she would want to play this character, 2, everyone else would think it is fun for her to play the character, and 3, she would get upset to the point of crying when he says he wants a divorce. That might be reasonable if not for the player saying she had been cheating the whole time. I mean, why even start that drama? A person likes someone but jokes about banging their friends, doesn't sound like a good relationship from the start. I don't want to sound bad here, but it seems the player, female, wanted to be wild and free with the character, but that shouldn't fit with the paladin's wife. They should have just let her draw up an independent female character that made her own choices. Lol. She made her character cheat on you for 8 years, you suggest a divorce, and she's crying. You're supposed to yes, and? Then she can yes, and a divorce. First of all, this should have been red flagged from the start. PC to PC and PC to NPC romance are two different things. They need to get separate consent from players. You didn't consent to this player playing your PC's wife's character. Retcon is also something that should require player consent. Did your PC get to do investigation checks during those 8 years to possibly find out about her cheating? Or maybe it was supposedly not even hidden from your PC. But it was unknown to you as a player because it was just made up. You might have wanted to make different decisions for your character over that history. So maybe retcon, but yes, and also let's rewrite history so my PC left her 7.5 years ago. At this point, the best thing would be for this player to create a new character. If she is attached to the character, and if you are willing, the second option is that she keeps the character but your character's divorce. Don't continue role-playing a romance you don't enjoy being a part of. Sorry if that makes her sad. She's not entitled to romance from fictional characters or from real people who don't consent. Yes, and doesn't mean that you have to respond positively to something, it means that you should be able to continue on the path of conversation/plot that someone else started, instead of retconning or deflecting to a different topic. She introduces a plot point, her character has been cheating. You expand on that plot point, your character seeks a divorce. That is yes, and? Of course, here's the thing, part of yes, and, like I said, is not retconning, not denying the reality that somebody else suggested. If you go, well, actually, you're mistaken and this different thing happened instead, that is the definition of no, but. The wife's player came in and no, but ed your story by taking your my character has a happy marriage and going no, because my character was cheating all along. Part of your fantasy RP was having a committed and loving wife. She shows up and immediately retcons it. Yeah, that'd annoy the fuck out of me too. Honestly, a shitty DM and shitty players. I would quit a table that did this to me. I have to imagine that they're good friends with the new player and don't care much about op, and so were happy to ignore op's feelings in favor of this brand new person. I can't imagine being that disrespected by a table I'd played with for 2 years. DM for 21 years, improv coach for 12, and social worker for 3 chiming in here. Biggest rule of improv before yes and is consent. On stage, We don't touch another performer unless they're comfortable with it, don't create scenarios other players have set as boundaries, and don't make suggestions that actively harm the other performer. If you get the suggestion of Forrest and start the scene as a lumberjack, it might be a suggestion to come in as an entertainment lawyer, but is that a suggestion that's organic to the scene? Does it build off of Forrest or lumberjack? The cheating spouse is a suggestion, but is it a suggestion that's organic to the 2 years of the campaign? If the spouse was a more organic suggestion than a bold squire, a retired sword teacher who came to journey with their student, a rival paladin come to test your oath, then there are still better ways to explore it. The wife was praying for your safe journey so hard that the god of war made her a war cleric. She wrote the tales of your adventures before joining with you to tell her own as a bard. She has been honing her shield skills as a cavalier to keep her husband safe. She made a pact with a death knight that claimed to be a paladin to save the world so you could retire together and became an undead warlock. As always, talk to your DM and players. Talk about your feelings more than your characters. Let them know they need to yes and to your comfort and enjoyment. The player started crying. Someone being an asshole and then crying about it like a bitch's peak, not my problem. The whole table is now angry at me. Bro sounds like some shit group without integrity and respect for a long-standing player. I would be very hesitant to allow a player to take over an established NPC, let alone one that is already connected to another player's PC without everyone being on board with it. Also, who in their right would interject themselves into playing a PC's spouse without it being a coordinated plan between the players playing the married couple? This seems crazy on so many levels that it feels like some key pieces of information are missing or that it's fake. This entire predicament is so far beyond what D&D is about. Actively creating OAK problems, the kind that can break up groups, for what benefit? This doesn't sound fun. Instead of creating a fun tension to role-play with, this is just taking away a player's autonomy. And it doesn't even make sense, if they are so stuck on playing another player character's wife, which is itself a red flag without consent, then why immediately sabotage it? Sounds like reality TV-style drama. First of all, the wife was your NPC. If you said it was a bad idea, then she should have made a different character. Especially since her decisions were essentially rewriting your character's backstory. This NPC was an existing character, and made by you, therefore any changes she made to it should have been made with discussion with you, especially since it affected your character. What she was doing by making such drastic changes to your NPC wife was making changes to your character without your consent. Now, as far as in-game goes, wanting a divorce after putting up with infidelity for several years is completely reasonable. If the new player gets to decide that her new character was cheating on you for so many years on her own, she does not get to decide how your character gets to react to it, and she does not get to, by fiat, make your character to have accepted an open relationship. From my outsider's perspective, it looks like she started crying because she had a story that she had made up for this character, and a script she wanted you to follow, and your own character agency didn't matter. So, when you didn't act the way she wanted, she turned on the waterworks and turned the rest of the party against you. Yes, and she slept with everyone in the party. What? That's unreasonable. She got to rewrite my character's story, now I want to rewrite yours. That would be me, taking agency of what is now her character, so it would not work out. And I am trying to avoid these eye for an eye escalations as it would only make the situation worse. Suffice to say, we are not on reasonable conversation terms now.
Hey adventurers! Today I'm super excited to share my thoughts on Keys from the Golden Vault, the thrilling new D&D sourcebook that's all about heists. If you're into clever planning, stealthy maneuvers, and daring escapes, this book is for you. What I love most is that it's packed with heist adventures for every level, so whether you're a new party or seasoned veterans, there's always a perfect challenge waiting. The artwork in this book? Absolutely stunning. It's not only vibrant and detailed, but it's also incredibly inclusive, showcasing diverse characters and settings that truly reflect the world of D&D today. It makes it even more fun to dive into these scenarios with my group to have this beautiful book in hand. And let me tell you, running these heists with my tabletop crew has been an absolute blast. The creativity, the tension, the out-of-the-box thinking. It keeps everyone on their toes and coming back for more. So if you're looking to spice up your D&D sessions, Keys from the Golden Vault is a must-have. Trust me, you won't regret it. Now go plan that perfect heist. Link in the description. Just go to the description and click the link and buy the book.
Taking agency with what is now her character. What about them taking agency from your NPC wife with no input from you? Honestly, it sounds like a breaking point to me. As a DM and player, I would be more than a little irritated by this. I know you said you didn't want to turn evil, but maybe you should. Paladin hates that he was cheated on / lied to for 8 years, and decides to make a dark pact with an evil being. Now the Paladin is a Dark Knight, anti-Paladin, and arranges the death of the cheaters / liars. Sounds like the party is in turmoil now anyway, could burn the bridge and end the campaign. A while ago, I had another player insisting that my character was a racist. Every session he would find a way to squeeze that in. I would yes and it by calling it the misguided opinion of one who needed redemption himself. Eventually he started introducing me to new NPCs as a known racist. I had to call him out and tell him to stop trying to rewrite my character as an extremist bigot. Sometimes you just have to put your foot down. I would just tell them you are not comfortable with this form of player versus player conflict. Offer an example of the new PC is delusional and thinks she's his wife, and has actually killed his wife and stolen the ring, and attempted to charm the party and convince them they are her, but really she is an ancient hag attempting to split the party. There are 2 real options, and not the over-the-top suggestion I put elsewhere to highlight how ridiculous this is. 1. They are both yours and wife players' friends, and should not discount your feelings. 2. They are really only wife players' friends. Tell them to fuck off. Just thought of one more. 3. You are a very young group, and wife player is interested in op and the rest are trying to force RL connection this way. In that case tell them this from me, this is not the way to do anything but create animosity and dislike, you fucking muppets. Use your adult words instead. Coming from improv, yes, and isn't meant to be a non-stop permission snowball to every weird thing a character or player or performer says or does. It's just a simple rule for beginners to not deny the reality that's been established. If someone says, "I love it here on Mars," and the other person says, "No, we're on a submarine," this is a failed yes and a basic denial of the premise, an improv fail. A successful yes and would be, "Yes, and the Martians aren't even as mean as everyone said." You could even yes and with a but that still agrees with and expands the premise, "Yes, Mars is fine, but you only think that because you've been hogging all the oxygen." When a player comes in and starts improvising in a way that destroys or retcons a previously established backstory, that's a denial, not a yes and. If you established that your character has a wife who behaves a certain way and that you have a character who behaves a certain way, and then someone comes in and alters that, that's not a yes and. That's just denying the existing premise of the situation and inventing new bullshit to suit them. I mean, in our group, even PvP has to be consensual. Certainly marriage should be. If you wish to dump the dud, talk to the DM privately and make sure they know this is a deal breaker. You're not going to have your character unilaterally rewritten but a newcomer no matter how hard she cries. The folks at your table definitely do not understand the many, many asterisks that come with yes and consent, for example. Also, choosing your character's wife, when they could choose literally anything, is weird AF. The fact that your DM greenlit it, is mind-boggling to me. I'd love to know their thoughts, their explanation on why they thought that's okay. Okay, yes, and fine. But there is no world in which the GM should have let someone take over an NPC your paladin was married to. It was destined to fail. Also, there are totally valid times to say no. No one should be forced by decree to go along with every bad idea other people have. Could she have claimed to be pregnant and not tell you, and other unspeakable things? I get rolling with choices, but some choices are just shit. That is the entire point of safety tools. So on every front, your group has let you down. Yes, and is a tool for improv to keep the flow of a skit steady. It's about accepting the fiction that your improv partner has created in order for the show to not grind to a halt. D&D is not an improv show. There is already established fiction that you have to adhere to, there are rules that you have to adhere to. There is emotional buy-in from the participants that needs to be respected. Yes, and doesn't always work. Yes, but, no, and no, but are all valid responses to something in D&D. Your table, especially, but not limited to your DM, needs to understand this. If this is real and not fake, it honestly sounds like a pretty shitty table. I would seriously debate leaving. Imagine taking away narrative agency over a PC's wife without the PC agreeing. And then getting angry when the player doesn't like a major and fundamental change to that wife's very nature. Bad DM, bad player, bad table. Find better. Edit: the only reasonable resolution for this is for the new player to stop playing your character's wife and for everything that happened to be retconned, and for the whole table to apologize to you for this shitty behavior. I guess I'm just going to repeat what others have said. Your character married a NPC, and shouldn't find himself suddenly married to a PC, especially not without your consent, especially not when the player is somebody you don't know. She's already altering who your PC's wife is, and will only do so more and more as she develops the now PC of your PC's wife, effectively changing your backstory, which nobody, not even the DM, is ever allowed to do without your express validation. You can't write your PC into some other PC's backstory, as in, you can't create a PC from scratch saying, hey, how about this, guys? My PC's is Mike's PC's kindergarten buddy. They were besties till Mike's PC left town to go to Paladin University, let alone seize an existing character from a PC's backstory to make your PC with, whether said backstory character exists as an NPC or not. Imagine that, Bob makes up his PC, Rindell, loyal good paladin, and after a few months or years, Lindsay joins the game and says, okay, my PC is named Waldo, he is a paladin too. In fact, he's Rindell's old master, the person who took him in as a young lad and taught him everything, the one being he respects most in the whole world. And now Bob's hands are tied because Rindell has to do whatever Waldo thinks is right, which effectively makes Bob Lindsay's poodle. That's not how it works. Whatever relationship exists between PCs and how it evolves is decided together by the concerned players. Doing things differently amounts to negating player agency, which is a pure and simple no in D&D. Have a very clear and open discussion with the whole table. This is not how D&D is played, and the new player has to make a new PC, not steal your PC's wife from you. She's not playing your character's wife, and that's final. Edit: also, what's that shit about imposing an open relationship to your PC? Is the girl trying to test out how she could force her real-life boyfriend into one, or what? Honestly, I can't imagine a paladin in an open relationship. I mean, if you wanted to play a PC in an open relationship and I were the DM, I'd suggest you picked a different class, because paladins are all about commitment. None of this makes any sense. If the girl is friends with everybody at the table but you, I'd be concerned about how they may all have decided to kick you out of the game and have their friend play instead. You were definitely yes anding too. Yes and is about accepting the truth of the other person's statement and you react accordingly, not being okay with everything all the other player characters do. Yes, your character's wife was unfaithful. And, you decided you had enough. That's totally fine. It didn't fit the narrative everyone else had envisioned, but that's the thing about improvising, nothing is predetermined and you're literally making it up as you go along. You're still building the narrative, and arguably a better one by making your character react in a more real way instead of a brainless simp. No, but... Sorry. Couldn't resist. Yeah, as a long-term addition to the party, that's probably a bad idea. It conflicts with your agency as a player. It would be like turning the ranger's pet into a full-on PC controlled by another character. Talk with your DM. In private. Having her play your wife was incredibly inappropriate for a multitude of reasons. 1. You barely know her. 2. You've never played together so you have absolutely zero stage chemistry or rapport built with one another. 3. She has zero way of knowing how to step into the shoes of an NPC she didn't build, play or see come to life in the first place, let alone when it was purely created for your character. 4. Her being permitted to wreck your backstory through her actions legitimately boils my blood, absolutely at 0 point ever is that in the realm of another player to do. And a DM permitting it is no different than slapping your face with a steel gauntlet. 5. This was a disservice to you and her both, keep that in mind. Your DM basically took her agency and yours by not allowing her to build her own character and instead put her into the boots of an NPC tied to a previously and well-established character. So she may be upset at the situation and not you. Not sure on that one, but this wasn't healthy for either of you and I'm sorry this happened to you. There is just one more thing that caught my attention in your post. Open relationships are not cheating. If she's cheating on you, she's cheating on you. Open relationship implies consent of both parties. Also, open relationships and polyamorous ones are a bit different as well, so please keep that in mind. It will help your argument come across more clearly and not take a stab at people who don't deserve it. XOXO. A polyamorous married girl. Sounds like she used the yes and rule to declare one-sidedly that their characters are in an open relationship. I was a bit unsure of that by the wording, but the fact that open was compared to cheating was my issue. Because they just plain aren't the same thing. Yeah, but the way it happened in the game is like if he was monogamous, and then the wife just up and said, hey, we've been polygamous this whole time and I've been with other people. For that character it's basically cheating unless they retcon the whole backstory and have him agree to the open relationship, because it's cheating if he doesn't agree. I played Ultima Online for years a long while back, and my friend was part of an RP group. He and another player had their characters get married in-game, and they spent plenty of time playing out stories and adventures and such. At one point, he had to step away from the game for about a month due to real-life issues, but he informed the group about it and assured everyone he'd be back. Unfortunately, upon his return, he discovered that the player running his character's wife decided that she'd use his absence to say that his character had abandoned hers, so she played through stories of her mourning and then beginning a relationship with another member of the group. Despite how unfair it seemed, he played through it, even though the story forced on him was anathema to his character, but she seemed to enjoy the drama of it. The betrayal, both in and out of character, soured things quite a bit for him, and he eventually stopped playing with those particular folks. My story is only to assure you that shitty people are shitty. Fuck this new player and her oh so selfishly creative ideas. Your DM is a fucking idiot, and your table seems to be full of them. Get out of there. I struggle to see how this would be accepted at all if she was the one that got married, and then a man went, oh I wanna join, I'm your husband now and also I started a harem and you're in it. It's problematic on many levels. You didn't sound too thrilled about being thrusted into a relationship with another player. It effectively rewrote your entire character. You've played longer than they've been at the table. Yes, and works in moderation, and it only works when it's two consenting players, /role players, /DM and player. Yes, and is a device used in improv. Improv being short 2 to 3 minute sketches with little to no outside context which are not given importance to their long-lasting implications. This is not D&D. Please stop using improv devices wholesale as if D&D is a direct translation of improv. It's not. Stop treating it like it is. You are making a story, not an improv scene. The new player should never have been allowed to play the wife, unless maybe if the paladin player was super enthusiastic about it, which they are not. Rewriting other PC's backstory is not how yes, and works. If I was the DM I wouldn't have allowed this in the first place. If I were you I would refuse to play until at the very least everything is rolled back to the point before that player joined and they pick a different character. What the fuck is yes, and? It's an improv methodology, when you roll with the punches. Whatever is said, you agree with it and continue building on top of it. A. We are in a forest. B. Yes, and the forest is full of spiders. A. We are here to deal with our arachnophobia. B now has to act as if having arachnophobia. Copied comment. Yeah, this is an absolutely ridiculous scenario to put you into. The DM frankly should have never allowed the new player to play as a previously established character, especially not one who, effectively, belongs to your paladin. She clearly has her own ideas about how she wants to play her character, and that would be fine if it didn't effectively retcon entire aspects about your own character.
Hey adventurers and fellow Redditors, are you tired of hearing the same old battle music during your D&D sessions? Or just looking for the perfect soundtrack for your next epic quest? Well, let me introduce you to Amazon Music Unlimited. With Amazon Music Unlimited, you get access to over 100 million songs, ad-free. That means whether you need an intense combat playlist, relaxing tunes for a tavern scene, or just something to vibe to while scrolling Reddit, we've got you covered. And it's not just about music, there are thousands of podcasts too. So if you need a break between campaigns, you can catch up on your favorite shows. Plus, there's the best part. If you sign up today, you can try it free for 30 days. No commitment, no hassle, just endless music and podcasts tailored to your taste. So whether you're crafting your next D&D campaign, painting minis, or just chilling with your party, make your soundtrack legendary with Amazon Music Unlimited. Hit the link below and start your free trial now because every adventure needs a killer soundtrack.